All right, and now for our feature presentation, right? So, yeah, essentially we're gonna kick off this triple feature. We're gonna talk about three Marvel-based films. That will be Blade, Ghost Rider, and Werewolf by Night, right? So essentially we're just gonna talk about, just Marvel's, forays into the genre of horror, right? So, let's kick things off with Blade, right? Ricardo, myself, and fellow collaborator Ashton Menzies, we talked about Blade 2,
Right.
in celebration of its anniversary, 15 years, I believe it is. No, sorry, not 15 years, 20 years, oops. Had a blast recapping that, right?
Mhm.
So, we may kind of like, repeat certain aspects, certain things that we love, about that movie and, the first movie as well too, right? But yeah, for me, Blade, I would never forget when it came out in when it was advertised when it was advertised, coming out in theaters, and I was just so excited to just see, Wesley Snipes, who was big in the 90s, of course, right? Especially in the genre of action, right? I mean, whether it's Passenger 57 or Drop Zone, right? The man was big, right?
Yeah.
Playing this ass-kicking vampire hunter, right? And he's going up against this, fearsome vampire named Deacon Frost. I'll talk about Deacon Frost in a bit, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was excited as hell to see it, right? Unfortunately, I was a bit too young to see, so I didn't get around to watch it in theaters, right?
Yeah,
I had to wait till it came out.
My parents did not give a F.
Yes, you have great parents, Trent. Yeah, I remember you said
that?
they took you.
Yeah, hard.
Right. So in a nutshell, right? I would see it when it came, on cable, right? So I saw it first on TNT, and this is where we got the infamous line, "You morbid freakers, try the ice skate uphill." Yes, that's why I heard that for the first
I feel your pain. I saw Die Hard on TNT. I feel your pain.
Right.
yes, the Yippee Mother Falcon. Yes.
For me, it was Pulp Fiction, actually.
This is what
Like
happens, Billy, when you meet a stranger in the Alps.
Yeah.
but yeah, but from the moment I saw this, I was just drawn into this world of Blade, right? And I'll talk about the film a little bit further, right? But so when Blade 2 came out in 2002, I was like, all right, I am not skipping this. I go in theaters to see it. I think I did see it in theaters, if I'm not mistaken. I did that or wait until it came out on Stars, or I did both, right? But yes, I remember it coming on Stars, right? I enjoyed the hell out of that. That was for me, Guillermo del Toro coming into pure form, right? Because he did Mimic, which I would see like a couple of years after it was released, right? But for me, I didn't know about Chronos. I didn't know about The Devil's Backbone, right? So after I saw this, I was like, all right, I need to check up on this guy. And then I saw those two films, right? So when Hellboy came out 2 years after, I was like, all right, Hell's yes, I'm ready for that, right? And then from that point on, he just ended up becoming one of my all-time favorite filmmakers, right? What I love about Blade 2 in particular was, and we mentioned this in the review, how him being just a uber fan of classic movies and horror films, it gave him the opportunity to channel Nosferatu, right? The 1929 classic.
Count
Orlok
was such a great call,
yeah, that's how he did the Reapers, in that film, right? Yeah, just pure Nosferatu worship short, right? I just love that he just added his own style to it. So like in this film, for example, where they go in for, this sort of like realism in quotes, right? Where it's the real world, but vampires exist here. In this movie, in Blade 2, it's like, all right, in this world, vampires do exist and humans know about it, right? And we just show you that balance, right? The less said about Blade Trinity, the better. I will say this much though, after watching, the first Blade, because I just recapped it in preparation for this, right? There's a moment where Whistler, who is played by the great Chris Christopherson, said, how he got into the business of vampire hunter was basically that, some vampires attacked his, or a vampire attacked his family, and it was either a choice, right? Either family or him, right? And he mentioned a wife and two daughters, right? So I just watched a little piece of Blade Trinity, right, in preparation for this, right? Because I remember Jessica Biel's character, right? To say that she is Whistler's daughter, and, in a nutshell, she just says, I just have it written down here, that she was born out of wedlock, and she wanted to do what she thought was doing, and she's been doing it ever since. That's all. That's all the context we get.
I forgot that character was supposed to be Whistler's
daughter. Oh
Same.
my
Yeah,
god.
Same.
Oh, I know.
Oh my god.
But yeah,
no problem.
Blade
And what
Trinity
kills
was
me
a
is that they
mess.
actually thought they would have a spin-off based on these characters. Like,
Oh
Yeah, well,
jeez.
Yeah, what was the name of
She
the
come
group?
on board.
Because I know in part 2 was the Blood Pact, but I forgot what the group was that Jessica Biel and Ryan Reynolds, yeah, that was his first Deadpool character he was playing. I forget the name of the group that they were playing, whatever.
What? Yeah,
I
what
can't remember.
I forgot the name as well.
Yeah, Blade Trinity, I'm on the fence about that movie because, like, on the one end, Wesley Snipes was incredibly unprofessional and really
Yeah.
shouldn't have done what he
Yes.
did. On the other end, I'm like, yeah, but I totally empathize and sympathize with him because, like, yeah, they kind of messed up this whole thing. That I mean, to go from Del Toro to oh god, I fellow right
To David S. Goyer,
Goyer,
who I'll
yeah.
talk about in this.
I mean, talk about a fall, eh? I'm like, nah, boy, rough.
That's not a fall. That's like
Yeah.
walking downstairs tripping and like hitting
Yeah.
every step on the way down. Like,
Yeah,
oh my
rough. It was
god.
real rough.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I totally sympathize with him, to be honest. But whatever.
And the,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, before
And
we jump
then-
into the sorry, go
Well,
on, go on.
real question. Did anyone watch the Blade series with sticky fingers? As
No, I knew about
I
it, but I
Past the
never
second
watched it.
episode. It was so
I
bad.
watched the pilot movie and noped out of there.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, it's
I
that bad.
tried.
Okay.
I
This is the Spike TV version?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I remember watching some of it. Yeah, a lot of it do work. Like, almost none of it works. Like, seriously, they could have get a better actor for that. Come on. They could have
You
become
know,
better.
no disrespect to Sticky Fingers, right?
Right.
But yeah,
But were
before we
but were they no like black actors on television who could play
Yeah.
Blade at that time? Like,
Rough.
come on.
Nah, yeah, it was,
I
it was
know,
the
right?
worst take. It was the worst
Yeah.
approach.
it was. All right, so before we jump into our individual thoughts on the film, just a run through of how we were introduced to this movie here and the subsequent films, right? So yeah, Ricardo, since we did this before, you could just do like a little quick run through, for CC and some as to how you got into the franchise.
Yeah, for Blade, well, I just saw the trailer and we wanted to see it. It looked awesome. Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes was the hype.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, he's doing this character. I had some familiarity with the character because of the 90s Spider-Man.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Oh,
that-
yeah.
I remember
Yeah,
using
there was a great well, in case you're wondering, CC, there was a great character, a little story arc involving Morbius, right?
Yep.
And that's where they introduced Blade. Yes.
Oh,
Right.
That's cool.
Well, just speaking of, well, hopefully we'll get to Deacon Frost soon because there's a link between the old Blade and the new Blade, with a little series called True Detective. So
Oh.
you'll start with-
I see where you're getting at, Ricardo.
Yep.
I see you.
Yep.
I'm glad you make that point. I
Yeah.
forgot about season 3, bro. That was a
Yep.
great season, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
But yeah, no, yeah. It was Matrix before Matrix. Everything was leather and blackness, and it had that one scene in the
Yes.
trailer where Deacon Frost dodged the bullets. Look great.
Look great.
Yeah.
Mhm.
At the time, at the time, yeah. Back at it, it's like, looking kind of bad. But whatever.
I think they just add too much light in that scene, cause with bullets, it just going into the sun. It look like it going into the sunlight.
Right.
It's a little tweak they could do there. But yeah,
Right.
go on.
But no, it's a movie I just looked damn cool, and it was damn cool. It had a lot of cool moments and stuff in it. It's very corny now in retrospect, but
It is.
but
It is.
it's still pretty bad. And is a movie I remember liking about as much as the second film, but like when giving it a rewatch, it's like, nah, the second film is like superior in almost every way.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
this one is still solid business overall. Like, again, at the time we didn't have anything like this. The big scuttlebutt was, hey, they actually pull off a comic book movie for the first time, like really pull it off,
Yeah.
like legit
Yeah.
great pull it off. That's not Batman and Superman.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
kind of
Oh,
like,
I mean, that's not Batman and Robin.
well, no, but,
So like any Batman, any Superman. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I got you. But no, I thought you referred to the infamy of comic book movies.
well, right,
in 97, right?
That's an interesting thing too, because like when Batman and Robin came out, the Hollywood old guard, well, at the time old guard, well, the I don't know what to call them, but the Hollywood press effectively said, it dead, comic books dead forever, it's done.
Yeah.
And then a year later, it was immediately revived. So it wasn't like that was a whole thing by itself, man. This a lot of people call this the first real flashpoint for comic book films, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I
It's one of the
agree
big
with
ones.
that. It's one of the bigger ones. It's like this was before 90s. It was before 2000 X-Men.
Yeah.
They kind of did it. They kind of nailed it, to be honest. But yeah, that's all about it. I went. Of course, we went Windsor.
Windsor. Yep.
Windsor, right? The late great. Power to your 40s for Windsor, But
Pour a little liquor.
yeah. But no, I loved it. It's a film I remember I really enjoying as a kid. It was weird. It was perfect for a kid like me. All the blood and all the freakiness and the weirdness. And Deacon Frost, I thought, was a pretty cool villain. Everything that he represented. He was basically this super angsty Gen Xer vampire, right?
Yes.
But that's why it worked. He was a great villain in his own right. And they make it work. And then, well, the fighting and the combat. And the one thing I appreciate, and we'll get to this later, is the non-romance, right? Which is, in retrospect, a little problematic, but we'll talk about that. But I really like the fact that you had a male lead and you had a female lead and no romance.
Yeah.
Yes.
That fucking bullshit, right? I am so tired of the contrived romance at the time. Really, really bad.
Oh,
Terrible.
yeah.
But we'll talk about that. There's a little slight, not too problematic, but like a slight little issue there with with Hollywood and race and romance, right? You could talk about that. But whatever.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. Not a big deal because I appreciated that part of it, and I just really like these characters. Chris Christopherson was pretty awesome, right?
Yeah.
Wesley Snipes was awesome, and what's his name? Deacon Frost, I forget the actor name.
Stephen
Brad
Dorff,
Dourif.
man.
Stephen Dorff, right?
Stephen Dorff,
and then Mbappe, Sana Layton was in this, right? I was like, yeah.
Yes.
She was
I
at
think
the
that was
time.
one of the first times I saw her, right?
Yeah.
One of the first times I saw her, because this was, a couple years before, the great Love and Basketball, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But I don't know. I'm a fan of this movie. Those super love it, but big fan at the time, and it spark off everything. So like I had no problem talking about it.
Yeah.
All right. So Summer, horror aficionado, sorry. Just your quick history with the Blade franchise.
I mean, well, I knew about the character because my first love being comic books. I was always drawn to the darker characters in comic books. Even
Right.
in Marvel, I'm like a huge Moon Knight fan. I would always look for the ones that are a bit more macabre. And then this movie comes out, and of course, back then, nothing used to get spoiled by internet, which was awesome. So
Right.
I just knew it had vampires and it had Blade in it. And I was excited at just that prospect of how they were going to get that done. And I mean, I feel like Wesley perfectly cast for the role, especially considering not just that he was an action star, but his martial arts background.
Yep.
It's also one of the few movies that I don't like the magic to be like known. I don't like to know how the trick is done. So I'm not a person that goes behind the scenes a lot on movies. But this one, I dived in, and I knew about the fact that a lot of the reason that a lot of the fighting was so good is he handled that. He handled the choreography. He brought in his own students and his own people.
Yeah, I think he was like at the time he was like a 6th-degree black belt at that point in time in his career.
And I think, he ended up getting another rank or something after the movie came out. And so it was just amazing. And like you said, the special effects at the time, Stephen Dorff, I loved him since I saw him as a little baby boy in the gate. So it's like I was right there. And I do think he's an awesome villain. And I remember rewatching it and stuff because I love Shakespeare as well. And I couldn't help but think of Hamlet when I think of that whole thing with him and the mother and Blade, who almost had a kind of little Oedipus complex when it comes to
it was getting a little weird at times.
Yeah, right. But it all worked.
Oh, very weird.
It all worked. I do agree that the second one is the better one. I absolutely love that movie. Yeah. But this one, it did what it had to do so well. And maybe it's the fact that vampires is something that the mainstream audience will know what that is. Whereas when you try to do a comic book movie, a lot of it depends on the people knowing the core material. Whereas with Blade, it wasn't necessary, especially how smart they did it. They did it sort of quote unquote grounded. So everybody who's watching this, you can relate to this guy who is this vampire hunter. You don't need to know much about the Marvel universe for all of this.
Right.
And I think that's why, that's one of the reasons it was as successful as it was.
All right, nice. I really love the fact that we just avoiding Blade Trinity because I mean it's Blade Trinity, right?
Yeah.
So CC, I know you have some issues with the film, right? So we'll leave the issues with you for last, right? But I just want to know just your history with the franchise, just how you got into this franchise.
So like Blade is I was kind of the polar opposite to Ricardo's household. I was the kind of household where parents were very like strict about you're gonna wait until you're old enough and then you'll be able to watch more R-rated material. So I only knew about Blade, but like as a kid that loved monsters and the supernatural and like all things that go bump in the night, as it were, like a concept of like I've always kind of loved vampire hunters more than vampires in fiction, I think, and Blade, unless they're done really, really well, and Blade was kind of the beginning of that. Like, I mean, you get into stuff like Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter, Hellsing Ultimate, and like all the good stuff. But I've always loved vampire hunters more than vampires, and like Blade is the beginning of that. And I finally turn 18 and I discover being able to like stream whatever movie I want on the internet. And so I get, the chance, and I finally like find and watch the first Blade. And honestly, like it's I'll save my full on critiques for later, but like it's a movie that the first 20 minutes, every time I watch it, the first 20 minutes are like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe this is like better than I remember. And even the first time I was watching, I was like, oh, I'm vibing with this. And then it hits a certain point and it kind of starts to drag and becomes a bit of a slog. And I almost didn't watch the second one, but then I did. I decided to do it anyway because I'm at the time I was a bit of a completionist with franchises. Starship Troopers and The Crow cured me of that one. I'm not a completionist with franchises anymore. If sequels are bad, I will. Yeah, no. Right. But watching Blade 2 is my introduction to Guillermo del Toro, who is now who's like one of my favorite contemporary filmmakers. That was the first film of his I ever watched, and I love that movie to this day. It's one of my all-time favorite action films, one of my favorite vampire movies, comic book movies, and it is absolutely great. And so then like Blade is one of those franchises, and then of course we know, the Blade show is nothing, and then Blade Trinity is a mess.
Right.
Like Blade is one of those franchises where there's so much potential. Like it would not be really difficult to turn Blade into a long-running series or series of films or whatever, because like it's such a fertile ground, and I forget how many tropes about vampires and vampirism, and especially about like half vampires in popular culture, Blade kind of made more common. Like, audiences kind of know what a vampire is going in, but I think Blade wrote a lot of the rules for how we perceive and understand half vampires in pop culture.
Right.
Which is something I feel like I almost forgot until I rewatched it this time. It's like, oh yeah. And even little tropes like, the vampire nightclub, which we've seen a lot of different iterations of since Blade came out. And I know even things like What We Do in the What We Do in the Shadow show on FX, which had a running joke of like one of the characters starts a vampire nightclub and they can never get the blood sprinklers to work because they're always jamming because it's blood. That kind and stuff like that. It's just we wouldn't have that without the first Blade. And so it's a movie, and like Summer was saying, it's a movie that the production is really fascinating, given that like it was a film that a lot of people involved in it on the producing level didn't have any faith in whatsoever.
Right.
Which is so surreal to think about now. Like it's this comic book movie and they're like, nah, no one's gonna get this. This is too weird. Like no one, like having to fight to get it made every step of the way. And then having it also being part of like Wesley Snipes' star persona and everything, and like what that meant for the 90s. And even like the fact that when we're all running around talking about how Black Panther is the first like black superhero movie, we all forget, no, Blade. Yep. I mean, we don't have to talk about we don't need to talk about Steel with Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, we can skip
no.
But we don't need to talk about that one. But Blade predates Black Panther in a meaningful way, and that's really important. And like Blade is also not just black in the sense of like having a black main character, which I feel like is what happens with Steel, but like rewatching it is a very black movie.
Yeah, it is. As I said that CC. Sorry to cut you there. I kind of like looking at it now. I kind of see this sort of like a new blaxploitation film, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's the term that I
yes,
use
yes.
for movies like say Friday or quite recently, well, a few years ago we got the remake of Superfly, right? Because yeah, if you look at like the character of Blade himself, there's actually a moment where involving him meeting a friend of his, to get serum. And I was just watching that, even like the way how they do the little fist bump and hug each other. It's like it's some blaxploitation stuff, like the
Yeah.
only thing it was missing was a ride on, like, you know what I mean? Where it just had that sort of
Right.
vibe to it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
because
yeah,
that's
you say?
actually, as you said, that because it's like now a lot of actors come into comic book movies having no idea about the characters in the comic book, and that's what happened with Wesley. His whole thing was he went at it like those old black exploitation movie heroes, and
Right.
that's why you get that vibe of Blade. Like the part where I think there's a part where he does this yes kind of thing.
Yeah, the little fist bump.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff like that. Yes, and he also pushed for them to hire a black actress as the lead. They were
Right.
gonna
Yeah.
hire a white
Okay.
actress. So you do get the feeling, as Cici said, that this is our first real before Black Panther. This was the
Mhm.
first real black superhero movie.
Yes.
Yes. So just kind of wrote down some points here, so I'll just share them with you guys, right? In terms of like the film itself, right? Not gonna go into like the plot and whatnot, right? We
Right.
kind of know the plot right now, by now, right?
Yes.
For me, I just always felt like, even looking at it now, right? Like how the action and the violence still holds up, right? Just that mere decision, just go all in with that R rating absolutely works, right? So when you're looking at the action scene, right? Or whether, it's somebody being punched or kicked and whatnot, right? There's always like a like a intensity to it, you know what I mean? Like they don't sugarcoat the fact that yes, in this world people get hurt, people could get their arms broken or whatnot, people could die in this world, right? I just love that they did not hold back in terms of the action or the violence, right? That being said, though, let's touch on Mr. Deacon Frost himself, right? My God, is he an asshole in this though? But but look at it now though. It's one of those things that they kind of forget. But he actually makes some great points in terms of where the progression of vampirism should be, right? Because really, like what Ricardo say, he's like this angsty Gen Xer, right? But I just like that the fact that he's not a pure blood, right? He's looking
Right.
down and
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the pure blood members of the vampire nation, saying, "Yo, we humans are our food." While they're trying to make all these backdoor deals with them and whatnot, right? We should be feeding on them because it's about our survival, right? Because early on, there's the meeting scene. They pretty much chastise them for having these nightclubs and they say, "Oh, you're just bringing more attention to us, and
Right.
we're supposed to be in the secret." He's like, "No, bro, this is how we bring in humans." You know what I mean? I love that.
It's
I
very,
love that aspect about him.
yeah, it's
he
very,
always
it's
thinks a
very,
lot.
yeah. There's always a kind of interesting subtext with well, for lack of a better term, the mixed raceness of it. So there's a kind of running joke in the black community, which is how come light skinned people more black than black people? It's that. That's how I kind of gather from it. Or you can even carry it in another direction of, well, Hitler is not a German. That.
Right.
Like, that's how I always felt about Deacon Frost's character. Is this kind of weird overcompensation to his villainy. Like, he need to be more vampire than the vampires. And, be this big leader and whatever it is. It's like, yeah, but bro, you can chill out, but no, he can't because he's always measuring up to this, conceit of perfection, for lack of a better term, or purity
Yeah.
or something like that, right?
It's always-
Who was the guy who was the head of the leader who they killed on the bleach? What was the name of that guy again?
Well, right. That's what I was gonna get to.
Chapter,
They got Udo Kier. They actually got
Udo
Right.
Kier.
Udo
Right.
Kier, right? As in
Yeah.
the guy who starred in Blood for Dracula, which by the way, kind of a meh movie. I actually prefer Flesh for Frankenstein. CC, if you could get to watch both, you can let me know which one you prefer. But I don't know, for me, Flesh for Frankenstein is better. That's the Andy Warhol films, right? In case you wonder.
I had a shock when I saw Udo Kier because like I know him as like my own Private Idaho and like Andy Warhol movie.
Oh, he's in that too. Okay.
Well, because
Right,
for me it was a shock because I was like, oh yeah, this was a time when like big name actors weren't trying to distance themselves from comic book properties. They were like, oh, this is a weird new film based off this medium with its own distinct vocabulary. That'll be interesting. Like, I don't think he's used to full effect here, but it is interesting. Like, I don't know who. I know there's like a couple other ones you see in like early movies where it's like, oh shit, like they actually got this guy to be in this movie. But yeah, no, Udo Kier, Udo Kier, and like I was surprised to see him, honestly.
Yeah, and I do like in terms of just setting up the character of Deacon Frost, right? Where you kind of seen him and you just watch him, you're thinking he's just this dick who just kind of keeps himself. There's a scene with him, in the vampire library, deciphering this code and whatnot, and that's when Udo K's character comes and like slap him in the face, like and you're thinking, all right, he's gonna come to him eventually, right? I feel like there's a scene or two that probably could have set that up a lot more, the tension between the two of them. But I just love that he just there, kind of just passing time, watching Blade do his stuff. And then when he finally deciphers everything, that's with the whole Blood God arrival. That's when he kicks into action, right? So he approaches Blade, he gives him the deal, all that kind of stuff. There's a moment where he actually throws a kid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As a diversion, and then afterwards he just goes back into Whistler's crib and just like basically beats the guy near to death, and like still that moment still stands out to me, right? Just in terms of how much of an asshole he is, right? But yeah, you have to kind of build this character up as so for me, Deacon Frost is always a villain that you just love to hate by. But just looking at it again, it's like the man really had a lot of good points though. Like, well, the main point for me, one thing that really struck me is that he knew he kind of figured out this thing about the whole blood god stuff, and he kind of acted like, you're pure bloods, you're kind of acted this thing sooner. So here you have him, his girlfriend, I forgot the name, and just all these non-pure blood vampires.
Yeah.
Even even Quinn, right? The comic relief, if you will. And they just like, yeah, let me just take this power from underneath these elders. So they doing nothing with it. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that about the character.
It's funny because that's the thing. I would with vampire lore in and when you watch it in the media, like right now, I started watching Interview with the Vampire, which is like blowing me away how good
All right,
they're
good to hear.
doing it. And it's funny because there's always this element of classism.
Yeah.
So I feel like
Yeah.
with Deacon, that's his thing. He has this white boy with all this power and all this wealth, and he's not
Oh, yeah.
happy because he's constantly being reminded he's not quote unquote pure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but chip on his shoulder. Yeah.
Right.
Like
So-
if Deacon Frost existed now, he'd be in crypto because he'd be an
Right.
Elon Musk wannabe, like that kind
Facts.
of thing. Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he surrounds himself. He breaks all the rules. Why? Not because he really cares, but it's all about showing them that, oh well, you guys act like if it's such an important thing to be pure, but I'm building this army of like-minded individuals, sort of
Yeah.
thing, that I can control. Because it's all about power. It's all about control. And it's just constantly being told you're not good enough. He's like a child. He's a petulant child.
Yes, yes.
But I do love him as a villain. The only thing for me was I did feel like the fact that he was the one that bit Blade's mother while she was pregnant was a bit forced. I
Right.
didn't think that was necessary to kind of close that loop.
Mm,
She could have just have been attacked by a vampire and ended up with Deacon. I didn't see it necessary to kind of make Deacon Blade's father, so to speak.
So to speak, yeah.
Sire,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Right. Also, another character is one of those characters that you kind of see in the film, but you don't really think about because it just has a moment. But I think that it just adds an extra layer to the great world building. This show really shines with the world building, right? The character of Pearl, right? Where you kind of look at it and you say, okay, all right, it's this overweight vampire. I get the joke, blah blah blah, right? But I just like the idea that you're overweight now, and the vampire and it shouldn't have any use for you. So that's basically gonna put you in the meal room, so to speak, right? So, but in other words, he's just a record keeper. He's just there. He just keeping notes, right? And also points for the TV with the cooking show. I thought that was really interesting, right? But it's like that whole idea that we have no more use for you. Let's just put you in the crypt, right? Because we don't care about you, right? But I don't know. I just find that this decision to have a character like Pearl is really interesting, Jed. Like you can look at it as sort of like comic relief, like, oh, look at how fat he is. But I think it's kind of touches a lot more on how these vampires, the ranks amongst the vampires, right? I don't know if you guys have anything to say about Pearl, or it's just like, oh, he's just a throwaway character.
I hate Pearl.
Oh, you hate Pearl? Or the voice there.
He was,
I don't know.
He was, whatever they were. But what I liked about Pearl was how out of left field they were, because
Yeah.
it's not a character that you would normally see in a vampire movie. Vampires
That's right.
are sexy, vampires are this and that. And
Right.
here's this character who looks like a real monster, so to speak, you know. So
Yeah.
Jabba wannabe.
yes,
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
very
think
Jabba,
it shocked everybody, the scene, in you know, and it worked in the way it was meant to work, especially when Blade was burning them, you know. It's a very memorable scene.
Yes.
It's very mean spirited, to be fair. Like, it's like,
No, although I like Karen as in Bush Wright's character's response, he moved, right? That was a great line. I love that line. Yeah.
That delivery was good. Yeah.
Right. Couple right? Because we could talk for days about the movie, but there's notes that I picked up on, right? One thing I always like admire about the character of Blade is just the little subtleties, the little things that he does that they don't really expound on, but they say a lot about the character, right? So one scene in particular is going back to the moment where Whistler gets beat up, right? Also, the whole retcon idea because of Whistler surviving, because it's clear in this movie that he did kill himself, right?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
he mentioned that earlier, with Karen's character, is like, here's a gun. If you find yourself feeling thirsty when you had too much to drink, if you still had a lot to drink, take that gun and use it on yourself, right? So it's clear that he killed himself, right? But to the show's defense, I don't think that they were sure that we're gonna have a sequel. But it's like, all right,
they
well,
weren't.
gonna have to have a sequel, so let's bring back Whistler, right? Let's just
Right.
make the excuse that he didn't die. Maybe he was bit, which I'll get to. And he
Right.
was carried to Europe because we wanted to bring Blade to our turf so we could hunt him down, right? That's the assumption I am given here, right?
Right.
But just the moment with him on that chair and Blade, wipes the blood, right? You notice that he's wiping the blood from his neck, right? And just kind of watching him. Now, for me, how I saw it is that, Blade has this kind of mindset of, all right, if you're becoming a vampire, I'm going to kill you, right? So I feel like he just kind of wiping the neck, kind of just looking to see if there's any, like, bite marks or anything like that. That's how I read it, because he's not wiping his face or anything like that. He just aiming for the neck. He just keep rubbing the neck, before Whistler say, you know what I mean, go, you big son of a bitch, and then, give me the gun and go, you big son of a bitch, and he walks away, you know what I mean? So, but that's what I love, just his mindset is always like, all right, if I know you're gonna turn, I'm gonna kill you, right? Also, right afterwards, with him preparing for his attack on Deacon's property, right? The sort of samurai-esque montage that we get here. By the way, props for Mark Isham's score for that particular score, that ambient noise music that you hear there. I love that, right?
Yeah.
Just that moment with him taking that plant and just severing the roots now. I love that, right? And it's one of those things that the show don't stop to explain why he does it, like it's a samurai thing. But I love that he just kind of does it because he's that type of guy, right? And also it makes for great foreshadowing when he runs into his mother. It's like, yeah, you know what I mean? I'd cut you off, right? So yeah. But yeah, sorry, there's just a couple more things and then I'll shut up, right? And one other thing that, just going back to Blade and his mom, right? There's actually a great, conversation scene involving her, right? That's before the ceremony takes place and, his blood gets drained, right? Where, she talks about, how she's enjoyed hunting and killing, she kind of seen it in such a way that, Blade himself kind of enjoys hunting and killing, right? So in other words, Vanessa enjoys hunting and killing humans. He enjoys hunting and killing vampires, right? But at the end, she says sooner or later, the truth always wins, right? I thought that line was pretty interesting as well, too, because, there was an option early on when he was being brought into that whole crypt area, right? To do the ceremony, right? Where Karen says basically, the cure that I'm working on, if you take it, it will basically make you human. You will not have your strength. You will not have your regenerative abilities, right? And then near the end of the film, he's just like, what, you keep your cure. I still have a job to do, but in the meantime, just make me a better serum. Right. So he's like, yeah, I could go back to normal, but it's like, nah, I kind of had to do this because he just so hell-bent on wiping out vampires on the face of the earth now. He just feels like he's the only man to do it, right? So I just love those little subtle things about the character of Blade, man. That's really good, man. So it just includes into some of my thoughts here, man. So yeah, Mr. Goya, I mean, we see a lot about him, man, but the man put subtext into that script, though. Like the man was writing, but the man was writing. I ain't gonna lie, the man was writing that script, though, for real. But yeah, guys, you started with Ricardo. Any points you just want to mention about just stuff that stood out to you in Blade, just looking back at it now?
We're not getting into some super retrospective, but like I remember a couple of really cool moments, like when the doctor, I forget her name. Karen. I think.
Karen. Yeah.
Yeah, when she wakes up for the first time, and we call him Whistler. She's talking to Whistler, and there's this really cool moment where Blade comes into the scene, but completely
I love that.
silent, like a ninja.
Yes.
Pretty awesome.
Mhm.
That was awesome. Like it's all these little small things like I really dig and enjoy for what it is. Like it's just
That's
yeah,
a-
happy,
it's-
man.
it's a small thing, it's small thing.
Library with
Yeah.
the actress. But she also was like a champion on like a really crazy level. And it's such an unexpected. You see this young girl, you don't know what's gonna happen next,
Yeah.
and she just, gets
Oh yeah,
badass.
Yeah. That was a cool scene though. Yeah.
that was a
Right.
cool scene.
And
Of
it's
course
that
the
sword, it's as iconic as anything else about Blade. Is that sword.
Yes.
ice again. Some motherfuckers want to ice skate uphill. Classic scene.
Yes.
The
Classic line.
final fight. I like the final fight. Final fight is pretty cool.
Me too. Yeah,
it's-
I felt so too. Yeah.
He gets the blood. He comes back and be a badass. He had that one funny moment where he just kick a guy, straight out, out of the scene. It's a total comedy moment. But I think it's a moment where he rip out a guy's throat and throws it at another guy.
Throws it at
Yes.
another guy. Yes.
Like,
Yes.
artist. And then the final fight.
That scene is so incredible though. Although, well, I could say, well, of course, the climactic fight scene in Blade 2 though is like a huge improvement
yeah,
over that.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
But the final fight in this was pretty cool. Again, CG don't hold up all that well. Like when they were
Oh dear
summoning
God.
La Mabra, or whatever the god was named.
Yeah.
I forget the name.
La Magra. Yeah.
La Magra, thank you. Right. I think it had like these scully skeleton creatures ripping out of them. Yeah, look
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, Here's the
Yeah.
thing about that. So here's the thing about that. The first
That
time
looked like
I saw
some
that,
mummy 2 bullshit, honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
Yes.
I thought it was gonna say the first moment, but I won't lie. The first time I saw that legit like freaked me out because if
Right.
you look at it, it's like these things coming out of their mouths, eh?
Yeah.
But like when
ripping
they
out of
come
them, yeah.
out and you see them
To
fly, it's like
represent their soul, almost like their
Right.
truest form. Because if you
Yeah.
notice, it's bat-like with wings. That's
Yeah.
it.
exactly. Oh, and
Uh,
fun
but-
fact, they actually cut that scene out with the TNT version, well, the TV version, eh? That moment with the sort of like bat-like creatures climbing out of the pure blood's mouth. They actually cut that scene out entirely.
Okay,
you know?
wow. Yeah, no, that makes sense. But yeah, again, CG was kind of bad. And then, well, the final fight against Fox, I thought was kind of cool. This is the one big moment where he rips him and he cuts him in half, and like, great. And then he
And
forms
he
back
forms
completely
back,
with the
yeah.
blood. Again,
Yeah.
crappy CG blood doesn't hold up, but that blade just mounted what the fuck after. Was
Yeah.
I love that.
As you say that too, the part where Deacon Frost does this kind of fast run thing and then
Right,
ends right
yeah.
in front of him, and you see
Yes.
he pulls back.
Yeah.
It's little comedic touches that that Wesley puts in that
Yeah.
really works to make the character more than just another vampire hunter.
Yeah, well, my favorite scene for me in that fight scene where I was in the trailer is just that fast sped, clashing of these swords that they do.
Yep.
I just love that. It's like I just keep going until Blade literally like severs him in half. You know what I mean? I just love that shot. Yeah.
Pretty badass. And then, well, of course, the serum thing makes some sense because, like, yeah, this god guy, he's not really a god. He's just like an old vampire, but like a spirit, not really. But like, yeah, he don't understand modern chemistry. Like, he just don't get that. And he does not adapt to that because the whole idea was all the old things don't work. So
Yeah.
this new
Yes.
thing comes in.
right.
And yeah, Blade is a badass. You have to do the final shot in his head. He has to kick it for some reasons. Like, yeah,
Of course.
Is
It's
that not
1998, bro.
it's 1998. Yeah. So it's like, wait, you're really gonna like do it like that? You can't just throw it, but no, you have to kick it. Badass. But it's still good. And then the final thing, again, bad, crappy CG, but at the time it was pretty gruesome. Very, very reminiscent of Akira kind of thing where, the whole
Yeah.
expands.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
badass.
I just love that this one solitary leg that's exposed. Like I like
Right.
that. I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
And it's
cool. That was cool.
And he just blow up. And that's it. And like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
how you win.
But
If I remember
When you guys
correctly,
think about, no, go ahead, Ricardo.
yeah, no, if I remember correctly, again, it was supposed to have Morbius in this, but it was a cutscene. Can't
Oh,
remember.
really?
Yeah,
Really?
he was supposed to be the villain in the next movie, but Sony had the rights to the character.
Damn you,
And-
Sony!
And then we end up
Right.
with what we end up with.
Oh well, I suppose I can't be
Right.
too mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, Summer, any like moments or just thoughts on the film that that stood out to you?
You know what's funny? When there's one scene that stuck out, and no matter how long I haven't seen Blade, it's the one moment I remember very clearly it's when he got a hold of that police officer who was basically a familiar.
Right.
And
Oh, I love that.
that
I love
guy
that.
gets beaten up and dragged around, and just Blade's complete disdain. It's so funny to me that
So
this
You know?
guy who, okay, so I hate vampires, yes, but I absolutely hate human beings who would sell out their own kind
Right.
Yeah.
for these vampires, and I just every time that guy got hit, I was like, oh my god, it looked so painful, you
Yeah.
know.
Blade said all cops are bastards.
Yeah,
Right?
Yes.
And he's just like dragging him all around. It's I
Oh,
don't know.
it's
That
so
always
good.
stuck with me more than anything. It makes me laugh, but it also makes me cringe at how painful it looks. But funny enough, for researching this, Matthew, I actually found out that they were considering Jet Li instead of Steven Dorff. And
What?
Jet
Oh
yeah, Jet Li
my.
decided he would do Lethal Weapon 4 instead. So he
Yeah, which was a
actually was
mistake.
offered the
Oh,
role.
that was a mistake.
Oh,
And
it was. It
I can't
was.
help but wonder what this movie would have looked like if Jet Li was Deacon Frost, you
It'd be
know?
pretty badass because again, both Jet Li and West Snipes together.
Whoo,
Dude
peak
consultants.
form too.
Yeah, doing consultancy for the choreography. Yeah, like that'll be hard.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, but oh yeah, that's about it though. But all of it, I mean that character, the comic relief. I mean, how many times he got his hand cut off?
Cut
And
off.
Damn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
With
Quinn,
the
yeah.
sword.
I just love his line. You could slice him, you could dice him, but the Quinn man just keeps on coming. I love that. That's the dude from oh gosh, one of the detectives from Gotham. Actually, I was surprised to see him in it. And fun fact, he actually shows up in the film that we're gonna talk about next. Ghost Rider, and it's
Yeah.
funny that there's some allusions, of Blade in Ghost Rider. I thought that was pretty funny, right?
Right.
But yeah, anything else you want to weigh in, Summer?
no, that's it. That's it.
All right. So CC,
Why do you
I
keep
knew
bringing
you
me on your show as the dissenting opinion? I need to know
Look,
this.
I-
Why
look, like,
does
like,
this keep happening?
I know, right? Like I
This
thought
is-
that you
this
were
is my
familiar with the show
punishment.
already.
This is my punishment for defending Suicide Squad. An opinion I do retract, by the way. But like, this is my punishment for defending Suicide Squad, isn't it? I just have to be
Yes,
the dissenting opinion.
Yeah, so CC, did you not like the soundtrack to this? Like what's the
Oh
problem,
no,
right?
soundtrack slaps.
Yeah, I mean,
Soundtrack
Fat Beats, like come on, like that song is
Soundtrack
timeless,
slaps.
right? Yeah, it slaps.
Soundtrack slaps, absolutely. No, okay. Oh god, okay. So Blade is a movie that I respect a lot more than I like. And a lot of it comes back to my beef with David S. Goyer.
Yep.
Who is a man who has dogged my existence for some time, because he's made some of my favorite movies of all time, but he's also made some of movies I absolutely find terrible. Blade falls in the middle. Like, Blade for me is a movie that I don't think it holds up super well. Like, it's a movie that if you're kind of showing the potential for this character, it's great. Because like I love the bit when he actually drinks blood, in the climax. And first of all, that sequence is, whew. But then like he actually
it's well edited though. I
it's
must
well
say, very
done.
well edited. Yeah.
And then he goes kind of feral and leads into that big climactic final action scene. I love a lot of the weird shit, like how Freudian the situation with his mom gets. Like that's like funny and intense. Some of the texture to the vampire world, especially like a lot of that's really like well done. It's just I have a handful of very specific issues with the movie. First of all, oh god, I'm going to sound like an asshole. Blade is a boring character. Like, okay,
Yeah, I love this. Yeah, I agree.
To elaborate, there's been a problem in I have a big problem, and this isn't just like restricted to Blade. This is like a Hollywood problem in general, where ever since the 60s, our leading men have been getting, like, as our violence has been escalating, our lead characters have been getting more and more stone-faced and less reactive. Now, there are exceptions. Like, one of the reasons why I love Die Hard is that movie is like you get like a very human, very reactive main character. But in general, when it comes to protagonists, I prefer, like, not to say like humans, because like there are plenty of non-human characters I adore. Again, Del Toro does wonders with Hellboy, and I think that Hellboy solves all the problems I have with Blade as a character, because I don't find stoic men whose personality is cool and badass instead of actually having depth all that compelling. Wesley Snipes as Blade makes a good case for it. I will say that. Like his Blade is so cool and so badass in an almost over the top kind of way. Like a kind of character who's so like over the top cool and badass that he stands out in just like all the scenes where he's like walking around in broad daylight. I'm like, okay, but this man stands out so much. I love it. But like his movements and his body language are cool. Like Wesley Snipes pulls it off. But it's very telling to me that my favorite sequences in the film are like when he drinks blood and goes feral mode and screams, you know, Frost! Like, I'm like, okay, like now he has emotions. Now he has like, there's the bit earlier when Karen calls him out for the fact that he really cares about Winter, like not Winter, oh goodness.
Frost.
No.
Christopherson's character.
Whistler.
Whistler,
yeah. Like, he really cares about Whistler, but Whistler is
dying.
sorry
to consider CC. I just love how he kind of counters that with, you know, we have a good arrangement. He makes the weapons. He tries
to downplay. He's like, no, there's not my surrogate father at all. Fuck off. Like, you know, it's like, no, like I like my protagonist a little more vulnerable than this, goddammit. Like, it's one of the things I'm hoping we get with Mahershala Ali, because Mahershala Ali is very much a dramatic actor, so I'm very much hoping that we get a Blade that's just a little more open, because Wesley Snipes, it's one of the reasons why I think, well, actually, yeah, I'll get to that in a moment, but like, but then my other problem is I find the villain also quite dull. Like, I do not like Deacon Frost is like, yes, like, but I feel like my problem with Deacon Frost is that the whole new vampires versus the vampire establishment is a very well established trope in vampire fiction, and I've seen that generational conflict and struggle done better in other vampire fiction. I mean, like Blade 2, again, literally with like a new like a race of vampires that are so new and different that they're like mutants and that are actually like active threat to the old vampires, feels like a better version of what they're trying to do here. And then of course this whole element of the villain being like weak builds into the climax, which I'm like the movie has a really great setup and like builds this really cool, like, oh my god, the vampire god, like the blood god, oh my god. And then some leftover effects from the Mummy to fly through the boring villain we've had the whole movie, and his eyes turn red, and he's really good with a sword now. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. So like now, like, and I feel like all of these are things that are interesting. Like Del Toro figures out how to deal with both problems in the second film. He gives Blade a little more to do dramatically in Blade 2. Like there's a lot more going on there, and the fact he goes literally bending heaven and earth to rescue Whistler is like the proof positive. Del Toro leans into the weird in a great way, which is like, and I need vampire fiction to be weird. I can't handle normie vampire stuff. Like if you're gonna do vampires, I need them to be weird at this point in time, because there's so much vampire fiction out there. Like, give me something kind of strange. And like the first time we meet the like top vampires in the second Blade film, like they're kind of weird vampire ninjas with night vision goggles, and I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go. And like the villains are more like part of the like Blade 2 takes all my issues with the first Blade and improves on them. Like not only does Blade get a little more too dramatically, but without, and I feel like part of that was because Del Toro was pretty upfront with Wesley Snipes, where he's like, hey, I'm not really interested in Blade as a character. And Snipes was like, no, that's fine. I'll figure out, Blade. You can do what you do best, which is the monsters. And so we end up with more interesting villains. And like, because we have the uneasy alliance between Blade and the other vampires, and these new vampires, it makes the film so much more compelling. The first Blade is a movie that, again, I will stand by the fact that all the action sequences, a couple standout ideas, and a few individual scenes are really interesting. And the first 20 minutes are just pretty damn perfect. Like, I wouldn't change anything about the first 20 minutes of Blade, but like it kind of starts to, for me, after that point, it starts to feel a bit like a slog. And then there's also random weird cool ideas that we do nothing with, like the zombie pit thing with Karen's ex-boyfriend is so odd, because
it is.
It's really because it's
about it. That's how odd it was. I actually forgot about it.
I love the idea, because I think Hellsing Ultimate, the anime series, also has this idea that like if a vampire bites you but it goes wrong, you turn into
Right.
You turn into a ghoul or a zombie. Yeah, I love that idea. And Blade introduces that idea. We see Karen beat up her ex a little bit, and then she escapes. And I'm like, wow, this escape.
Yeah, it happened pretty quick. One thing though, just in terms of that though, I like the sort of like Renfield kind of like voice and as that he gives him. You know,
That's
like
cool.
Karen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like kind of talking like he was feeding on a rat earlier or something like that. I like that.
Yeah, that whole bit is great. No, again, it's one of those sequences where I like it and I'm frustrated not because I dislike it, but because it's really interesting, but it doesn't go anywhere. Like I'm like, give me more of that. Like I really thought that like there'd be a moment where like I thought that like we'd have more of the finale would be her trying to escape from a whole pit of zombies, because I had forgotten that scene was in the movie at all. Especially since they give it so much build up. Like as they're walking to it, they're like, oh my god, sometimes people that get bitten, it goes wrong, and they turn these weird things. They eat anything, and then time to meet your ex, push in, and like they spent. I was like, holy shit, there's a lot of build up. And then she climbs out of the pit, and it's like, I guess no.
Fair argument.
Vampire in Brooklyn did it better.
Right.
Oh yes, yes, it did. It did.
Is that movie worth watching? I keep going back.
I don't know if I should recap it.
Okay, so mixed results. So I should definitely watch it. Got it.
Yeah, mixed.
No. So Blade is a movie. I have a lot of cool ideas that I think have been elaborated on and done better in specifically Blade 2. It's easily better than any of the films that come after Blade 2 and the show. Like, I'll say that. Like, full disclosure. The first Blade is way, way better than Blade Trinity or the Blade show. Right. But like, it's a character I care about. And there's a lot of potential to take this character in a lot of interesting directions. And I think we get glimpses of that in the first one. And I like the violence. I like the gore is very satisfying. But like, there's just so much stuff that doesn't quite work, and there's so much stuff for me anyway, and like Blade as a protagonist is just like, if he wasn't being played by, I feel like that's one of the reasons the show doesn't work. Blade not played by Wesley Snipes kind of reveals how boring he is. Like Sticky Fingers is thoroughly boring as Blade because he doesn't have Wesley Snipes' charisma. Like Wesley Snipes is charismatic enough that he can play a stoic, like, you know, I'm not emotional character, but you get so much glimpses of that in those little moments of humor you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
But by himself, written by himself on the page without being played by Snipes, he is a thoroughly uninteresting protagonist, which is one of the reasons I'm like Merce. I'm excited to see what Mahershala Ali does that, but also like have some trepidation. But yeah,
right.
So everything said and done, it's a mixed movie for me. Like a lot of good ideas, some bits that kind of drag, very edgy in a very 90s way.
90s
in a way
edge.
that very, I had forgotten that.
Agreed.
Completely. Like very 90s edgy and very like kind of what Summer was saying earlier about the Mario 90s movie, but very sure of itself, even in moments where it doesn't quite work. But yeah, no, mixed bag for me, certainly.
All right, fair enough. So you just give like individual ratings and whatnot, right? I mean, it's a fairly old film, but we'll give ratings, right? But Ricardo, I forgot to mention, you wanted to mention the whole non-romance thing between Oh
no, yeah, I mean, that was just Karen and Blade, like they could easily do some romantic bullshit with them.
Yeah,
and they don't. Like it's like no, just all business. Hey, we're going to separate ways.
It's not that type of show, bro.
Yeah, no? We're going to be separate ways at the end. Great, good.
Even though they have a weirdly sexual like blood draining sequence, they don't make it a romance, and I'm like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah. No, I mean it's have a little bit of tension there, but like it's nothing. But again, as I say, the only slightly problematic element is that they almost never do black straight people as romance, as like a super rarity kind of thing, as a whole discourse as gets super muddy super fast. But yeah, that's about it. Nothing really worth really talking about. But yeah.
Fair enough. All right.
But rated
so rated wise, as a guilty pleasure movie, decent or strong 4. I mean, this one and Blade 2 still hold up in my opinion in terms of just like horror themed action film that just so happened to be based off of comic book material. I am a little on the fence in terms of this MCU version we're gonna get soon enough, because like I said in my Blade 2 review, I just if it loses the visceral, R-rated, bloody, gory aspect of the trilogy, then I think it will kind of lose its point, right? I remember Ricardo making a point that it's it's not like it's not the way it was actually in the comics. It's just a take on it, right?
Yeah.
But it's a take that we know, you know what I mean? It's a take that we're used to. We can associate Blade with that style,
but
right?
my other concern, there's a big concern for Ali. Is that Ali kind of pushing 50.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're gonna do there. With
he is? I forgot.
Yeah, Ali have some age. Like Ali's a man who, like, when Ali was in the mid 2000s, where he could have taken over from Blade because he was on television at the time with the 4400.
True.
He could have been the television lead, you know?
Wesley Snipes has been rather like he's not full on Harrison Ford with Indiana Jones, but Wesley Snipes is pretty like has guarded Blade this whole time. Like he's like it's a character he clearly cares about to a great deal.
Yeah. But no, as I say, Ali pushing 50, and again, he is not the 6th-degree black belt that Wesley Snipes was. Wesley Snipes was in his early to mid 30s when the first Blade came out, and was a 6th-degree black belt. So I don't know what they're gonna be doing with this. And then I heard some sad, unfortunate scuttlebutt behind the scenes about that show. There's a lot of trouble. The director left. They didn't get a new director. They're rewriting the script. Yeah, so that is again red flags.
I'm encouraged that Ali specifically was like, this script isn't strong enough.
Right.
And like that.
Which is a good sign. Yeah.
That's a good sign. Like, it means that he's taking the material seriously. Like, I mean, not to be that person, I'm sure when we get to the end of the year and we're talking about the year in retrospect, but there is another movie from Marvel that definitely could have used at least one person going, I don't know if this script is quite as strong as it needs to be. But so I'm very happy that at least they're doing that. But yeah, I'm kind of hoping, like, one hope I have is that maybe they'll play up more of the like sword play. Like, it'd be cool. Like, it'd be really cool if they like had like someone. I mean, I know Bob Anderson has passed away, but someone of that caliber training Ali how to do like, or if they got the John Wick guys,
right,
and like
to
do like sword play stuff. Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Right. I see you. Summer, your rating.
When it first came out, I would probably be like, oh my God, this is like awesome. This is like 8 out of 10 for me. But I mean, looking back at it with a more critical eye, I would say it's like a 6.5, you know. I definitely love what they did with it, and rewatching it, you know, it's not one of those movies that you rewatch and it's like you get a completely different feeling from it. It pretty much evokes the same feelings I got. Yes, these special effects don't hold up that well. That is why I will always be a proponent for practical effects over CG, although I understand you can't always go that route. It's so expensive. But as a whole, what it did for the comic book world, even vampire movies, as somebody who loves horror, and I could treat it just as that, a vampire movie. It's quite good, and there are not many out there that I could say, oh my God, that was so good and that was so entertaining, and I want to watch it again. I can't say that about Blade. I want to watch it again. You know, I have no problem revisiting it.
Right.
All right. CC, your rating, followed by Ricardo.
For cultural impact and the effect and all the positive effect it has had on comic books, action cinema, and like horror cinema, I would give it like an 8 or a 9. My personal feelings about it as on its own as a movie, more like a 5 out of 10.
All right. And Ricardo, you know, your rating.
Yeah, it's a product of its time. Like, I agree with like 99% of what you said about the film. Like, yeah, a lot of it doesn't hold up, but it's totally, you know, memory, nostalgia stuff that holds on to me.
Right.
And the cool factor, look, it was the 90s. Everybody was wearing black leather, and again, that opening scene with the the opening scene with the blood sprinklers. It's still classic.
The blood.
I was like,
the blood nightclub. Yeah. But it's still a classic in my opinion.
Oh yeah, like I'm like watching the movie and being like, damn, I forgot pre-Columbine that in movies the way you showed a character was badass and cool was you gave them a long black trench coat.
Right.
Like I was like, oh shit, wait, I forgot.
Right. Yeah. It was a lot of that. But yeah, I don't know. I still have a lot of fun memories with it. Again, it's silly action nonsense, and a lot of it still mostly works, even though the stuff that doesn't work is still mostly like funny. And you laugh at it, and it's more cringe than anything. But it still works for you to it. I don't know. Yeah, I still give it like a 7 out of 10, maybe closer to 8, to be honest. That's how I still feel about it. Yeah.
All right.